All right. Technical maintenance, road switcher maintenance, diesel electric locomotive, truck assembly, removal, disassembly, cleaning, inspection, repair, and assembly, installation, toolkit SC49497CLE12, a 35 ton jack set 494007270470490. Personnel required equipment condition uh, and reference to 335. Materials: dry cleaning, solvent, grease, electrical tape, graphite, lubrication, condition description, speed sensing, alternator removed. Note that these procedures refer to the removal disassembly of one item from the truck assembly. When there are duplicated items in the truck assembly, the procedures will be repeated. Slide the installation tube along the traction motor leads to installation tubes 1 along the traction motor leads 2. Disc tag and disconnect the traction motor electrical leads. Remove the two cotter pins 3 and pins 4. Disconnect the two handbrake connection chains. Position the chains out of the way. Loosen the 4 clamps and remove the sander hose from the sander pipe. Position the hose out of the way. Disconnect the brake hose at the hose union and brake from the brake hose 10. Remove the 4 nuts and lock washer cap screws. Side bearing safety hook 14. Remove the shim pack. Remove the roller 2 cap screws, lock washer base, and side bearing safety hook. Remove the 4 cotter pins and 2 pins. The truck assembly looks like this. Check all the connections have been removed and enable the truck removal. Components of the traction motor are heavy and may be awkward to handle. Use correct lifting procedures to indicate lifting devices for assistance and use of personnel to avoid. Install suitable lifting devices under the pad to each of the corner locomotive. Check the locomotive's location is not interfering with removal of the trucks. Removal. Raise the lifting devices simultaneously. The locomotive is high enough to approximately 4 feet to clear the truck assembly. If unavailable to raise high enough, remove 16 nuts, lock washers, cap screws, and remove the two-step assemblies. Roll the truck assembly out of the under the locomotive to install the safety stands under the locomotive. Disassembly: 2 cap screws, lock washers, clamps. Remove the 4 cap screws, lock washers. Remove the airline assembly, 2 gaskets. Remove the 8 nuts, lock washer, cap screws. Remove the 2 brake cylinders. Refer to paragraph 357. Repair the brake cylinder. For repair of brake cylinder, remove the 8 nuts, lock washer 38, cap screws 39. Use a pry bar to remove the stay plates. Stay plates 40. Disassembly: remove the 4 nuts, lock washers, cap screws. Remove the safety plate 44. Chain and block the traction motor gear until the keep of the motor from falling. Note that suspension bolt must be removed in an open pit. 18. Remove the cotter pins, nuts, flat washers, suspension bolts, flat washer. Remove the pad and assembly. Place a wooden block under the traction motor for the support. Remove the chain or blocking lower traction motor gear until traction motor gear onto its support. Remove the cotter pin, and 2 cotter pins and pins. Remove the lower brake rigging. Remove the set screws, collar nut. Adjusting screws. Remove the adjusting screw from the collar nut. Chain out the equalizer and the outer and inner equalizer to the frame assembly 61. Warning: components of the traction motor are heavy and may be awkward to handle. Use the correct lifting device and identification lifting devices assistance for personnel to avoid injury. Use suitable lifting devices connecting 4 corners of the frame assembly, lifting the frame assembly from the traction motor gear until the wheel axle assembly 62. Lower the frame assembly 61 to the floor. Note that the 4 bolster spring assemblies of each of the truck, when removing the spring clusters, note that the position of the bolster spring assembly for the aid of installation. Remove the 4 spring cluster spring pads. Assemble the spring cluster as follows. Remove the nut, lock washer, cap screws. Separate the upper spring seat and 3 springs and bolster spring and lower spring seat. Disassemble the bolster spring by the following: remove the nut and the bolt, and remove the 2 bolsters from 75 from spring 76. Remove the cap screw spacer 77, cap screws and 77, spacer 78, block 78, 79, journal box 80, the traction motor gear unit wheel axle assembly 62. Disassembly of the frame assembly. Disassembly frame assembly by the following. Use suitable lifting device. Remove the chain, outer equalizer, inner equalizer. Remove the 8 cap screws, lock washer, center plate, dust guard, center plate, wearing ring, and center plate. Remove the 2 nuts, cotter pin, brake, and spring. Bracket and spring. Remove the cotter pin, 99, pin 100, spacer, brake handle 102, spacer 103, cotter pin 104, spring seat 104, and spring 106. Remove the nut 107, spring 108, and lever 109, spacer 110, iron from the frame 111. The disassembly continued. Warning: components of the traction motor are heavy and they may be awkward to handle. Using correct lifting devices indicate the lifting devices and/or assistance from other personnel to avoid injury. Disassembly of a traction motor gear unit wheel axle assembly by the following. Use a suitable lifting device. Raise the motor gear and unit wheel axle assembly. Remove the oil drain plug. Drain oil gear unit. Lower the motor gear into unit and wheel axle assembly to the floor. Position the traction motor rear unit assembly into the upside down wheel axle assembly is motor rear unit assembly 126, upside down wheel axle assembly 125 is in the air. Remove the 10 cap screws, lock washer seals, and gaskets. Remove the 17 cap screws and lock washers, and remove the gear unit cover 18 and gasket 119. Remove the 4 cap screws and lock washer. Remove the 2 axle caps, axle linings. Use a hoist. Remove the wheel axle and traction motor gear unit assembly. Cleaning and inspection and repair. Warning: dry cleaning PD 680 is a toxic flammable. Wear protective goggles and gloves. Use well ventilated area. Avoid contact with skin, eyes, or clothes, and do not breathe vapors. Do not use near a flame or excessive heat. The flash point is between 100 and 138 degrees Fahrenheit. If you become dizzy, get fresh air immediately. Get medical aid. If contact eyes are made, wash the eyes and get medical aid immediately. Secondly, compressed air used in cleaning purposes will not exceed 30 psi. Do not direct compressed air against the skin. Use goggles or face shield. General clearance of the trucks should be maintained and eliminate fire hazards. Reduce wear. Trucks can be cleaned while under the locomotive. If forced to spray, do not direct spray toward traction motors. Use the dry clean solvent. Clean parts dry with compressed air. Inspect the pedestal liners for the cracks, excessive wear. Total nominal pedestal liner clearance is 1/8 of an inch. Maximum clearance is 3/8 of an inch. Total nominal lateral clearance is 1/8 of an inch. Maximum clearance is 3/8 of an inch. Inspect the side bearing clearance. Normal side bearing clearance of 1/4 of an inch. Normal side bearing wear plate thickness of 1/4 of an inch and a minimum of 1/8 of an inch. Inspect the center casting wear plate to excessive wear. Nominal wear plate thickness of 3/8 of an inch to a minimum of 1/4 of an inch. Inspect the brake rods, levers, pins, and other rigging of the wear, cracks or breaks. Replace defective parts. Inspect springs and suspension bars for cracks, breaks, and other damage. Replace defective parts. Alright, cleaning, inspection, repair continued. Inspect the helical springs for the cracks and breaks and tension. Check the springs for the same length. Replace defective springs. Inspect the frame bolster, equalizer for the cracks. Replace the cracks, grooving, welding, grinding, smoothing, and dust coverage for cracks and damage. Replace and damage. Inspect the parts for damage. Replace as necessary. For table 3.5 for the truck assembly data. Your pedestal liner total nominal linear clearance 1/8 of an inch, and the maximum clearances from the lateral clearance in the pedestal liner are 1/8 of an inch, 1 3/8 of an inch. The side bearing, normal side bearings clearance is 1/4 of an inch. The side bearing wearing plate thickness of 1/4 of an inch. The side bearing wear plate of thickness of 1/8 of an inch minimum. Axle lateral and normal axle lateral of 3/8 of an inch, and maximum axle lateral of 5/8 of an inch. The truck assembly. 39. Assembling the traction motor gear to the unit wheel axle. 62. Following. Components of the main generator are heavy, may be awkward to handle. Use the correct lifting procedures indicating lifting device assistance from other personnel to avoid. Use suitable lifting devices placing the traction motor gear unit assembly upside down on the floor. Use suitable lifting device rear wheel axle assembly position over the traction motor gear unit assembly. Lower the wheel axle assembly to the gear unit. Install the 2 axle linings, axle caps. Install the 4 lock washer cap screws. Install the gasket gear cover, unit cover. Install 17 lock washers and cap screws. Position the gasket to the 2 sealing rings. Install the 10 lock washers and cap screws. 40, use of a suitable lifting device used turning the traction motor gear unit to the wheel axle assembly over to the wheels. 41, assemble the frame assembly by the following: install the spacer lever on the frame, install the spring and the nut, install the spring seat and cotter pin, spacer, brake head, and spacer pin and cotter pin 97. Position the lever 98 and install the pin 97, cotter pin 96, brake head 95. I can't read that. Whatever number 94 was, the pin and the cotter pin in 92. Install the spring 91 bracket 90 cotter pin 89, two nuts 88. Install the center plate 87, center plate 86, wearing rings 86, center plate dust guard 85 on the frame of the 111. Install the 8 lock washers 84 and cap screws 83. Use suitable lifting device on position in equalizer inside framing assembly. Position outer equalizer on the outside frame chain and inner and outer equalizers to the frame. The assembly. Position the journal box on the axle. Install the block and spacer and cap screw. Assemble the 4 spring clusters to the following. Assemble the bolster spring to the following. Position the 2 bolsters in the spring. Install the bolt and nut. Position the bolter spring, 3 springs, 70 and 69 on the lower spring seat. Position the upper spring 68 into the install the cap screw and lock washer and nut. Place the 4 spring pad in the frame. Check the spring pad. Engage the inner equalizer and outer equalizers. Place the spring cluster on the pad. Note the position of the bolster spring assembly. Use a suitable lifting device. Raise the frame assembly position over the traction gear unit wheel axle assembly. Lower the frame assembly to position the guide inner equalizer, outer equalizer into the slot axle journals. Remove the chains from the equalizer. Install the adjusting screw into the collar. Install the collar nut and the low braking rigging. Install the collar and cassette screws. Position the lower braking rigging. Install the pin, 2 cotter pins in 54 and 53, cotter pin 52. Raise the traction motor into position, install pad, assembly flat washer, suspension bowl 48, flat washer 47, nuts 46, cotter pins 45. Alright, position the safety plates, install the 4 cap screws, lock washers and nuts, position the 4 stay plates on the frame, install the 8 cap screws, lock washers and nuts, position the brake cylinder on the frame, install the 8 cap screws and lock washers and nuts, position the 2 gaskets airline assembly on the brake cylinder, and install the 8 lock washers and cap screws in 29. Position the 2 cap screws over the airline assembly, install the 2 lock washers and cap screws 27 and 26. Warning, components of the main generator are heavy and may be awkward to handle. Use the correct lifting procedure indicating lifting device assistance with other personnel to avoid injury. Roll the truck assembly into the position under the locomotive. Use a suitable lifting device to lower the locomotive into the proper position on the trucks. Position the 2 assembly. Install the 16 cap screws, lock washers 23, and nuts 22. Install the 2 pins 21 and cotter pins 20. Position the base on the side bearing of the safety hood. Install the 2 lock washers, cap screws, and roller. Position shim pack and side bearing safety hook. Install the 4 cap screws, lock washers, and nuts. Position the brake house, connecting the brake house union. Position the sander hose on the sander pipe and tighten the 4 clamps. Position the 2 handbrake connecting chains. Install the 2 pins and cotter pins. Connect the traction motor electrical leads and remove the tags and slide the installation tubes one over the connections.